Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our September A Garden in Every Season tour. My name is Paige Engelbrechtson, and I am the Nature Center Education Specialist for the Highlands Botanical Garden. The foundation supports research and education in the Southern Appalachians, and the vast majority of that takes place here at the Highlands Biological Station, and through programs like this one. So our Garden in Every Season tour is designed to highlight what has changed in the botanical garden over the last month. And as you may be able to guess by all of the leaves that are littering the trail I'm on, fall is on the way, but summer hasn't given up yet. So we are going to go explore a part of the botanical garden where summer is still in full bloom. If you are watching this on Labor Day, happy Labor Day. I hope you're having a great holiday. And if you're watching it at 11:30, I should be there in the comments getting ready to say hello, answer any questions you might have, and talk with you about some of the really neat things that we're going to see today. If we can't be together in person, this makes a decent substitute. So right now, we have just gotten on the boardwalk that is going to take us on our tour today, and we're looking out across Lindenwood Lake at North Campus, which is actually why this boardwalk exists. If you haven't been to the botanical garden recently or wandered out to the easternmost part of the lake, this boardwalk was built in conjunction with the North Campus project, and it tells a really cool story because most of Lindenwood Lake, if you're walking along it, you're walking on our gravel trails, yes, but you're also walking through a fairly mature forest. You'll have, look at all this mountain laurel and birch and rhododendron and pine and hemlock. I mean, you're going to be in the forest in the shade. But then you come out on this boardwalk and okay, yes, I've got some willows and maples and a baby birch here, but no adult trees. Even this white pine is still fairly young. In fact, we don't hit a mature tree line until fairly far off in the distance. This tulip poplar accepted. So what's happening? Why is this portion of the gardens comparatively so different from the other parts of the lake? Well, we'll see if we can piece that together as we're going, because as we are going, we're going to meet some pretty cool plants. Before we meet some cool plants, though, I want to show you guys these caterpillars that I found yesterday when I was out here rehearsing. Take a look at them. Aren't they gorgeous? So look at that bright red head, and he's got these stubby little red legs. Sorry, my hand's a little shaky. This is an Azalea Moth. In fact, it's the moth caterpillar. I want to show you one more thing. So just by blowing gently on it, I think I trigger a defensive reflex where he's making himself too big, scary, or difficult to eat. So I love exploring the garden for these tours and other tours because I get to notice things that I never would have seen before. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to do this. And I hope that I'm able to show you some things that you may not have seen before. Now, this first plant right here is, if you've been in the area, one that you have certainly seen before, but you may not know the name for. So it's this guy right here. It's a fairly short specimen as all things go. They can get upwards of 5 feet in really good growing conditions. But when I look, I notice these slender, kind of knobby stems, these scalloped edges to the leaves that are pretty delicate and soft, and these pretty characteristic, unique flowers. This is a plant called jewelweed, and if you want to find out why, if you have a chance, take a leaf and submerge it in water and see what happens. We have 2 species up here, orange and yellow. Pretty self-explanatory which one this is. Likewise, if you see a yellow one, you'll know it. And this is an annual. So this grew from seed this year, and it is racing to flower and set seed itself. And the flowers are really cool because if we wait, out of the way, But if we wait around here long enough, we'll see a very tiny bird come by. One that likes visiting flowers, that has a tongue long enough to drink the nectar that's all the way in the bottom of this tube. This is a really great plant for ruby-throated hummingbirds. So they are characteristic. We know that they like to drink nectar and visit flowers, and they're currently zooming somewhere around my head right now. But they are actually enjoying the nectar provided so relatively late because they are stocking up to migrate. Our ruby-throated hummingbirds are going to fly down, fly south, hit the Gulf Coast, and keep going. They are going to fly across the Gulf Coast, in the Gulf of Mexico rather, in a single flight. So these tiny birds need to stock up on all the food that they can now to make sure they're fit enough to fly to Central and South America, where they're going to overwinter. And I've got a couple of them chasing each other around right now. I think, according to my readings, the males may have already left because they want to get down south first. And then the adult females will follow. And then the babies who are born this year are probably going to be the last to go because they need all the extra reserves they have. And I just want to point out, if you're familiar with jewelweed, you'll know that this is the seed pod. And you'll also know that it's not quite ripe, because if you touch one of these, whoop, okay, I lied. It was ripe, because they disperse their seeds through a form called ballistic dispersal, which is what you just saw, where the pod itself actually pops, and in doing so, flings big dark seeds everywhere. Jewelweed is pretty abundant along the boardwalk and in Highlands because it loves wet spaces, and those seeds get dispersed so widely that as soon as a scrap of soil becomes available, jewelweed is probably going to be one of the first ones to find it and start growing. You'll come back here next year and you'll see more jewelweed, but it will be next year's crop, so to speak, not this year's. Another plant that we have here that I want to showcase is this shrub right in front of us. So this is identifiable in a couple of ways. The first is that the leaves are what we call opposite. That means that they're paired together. So the leaves are opposite each other relative to the stem of the plant. And those leaves have veins that do a beautiful curve. They don't come out to these wavy edges. Instead, if you're looking at them, you'll find they actually curve towards the edges and then continue curving towards the tip. So they have kind of a C shape. They never actually meet the edge, but they curve towards the tip. That tells me this is a dogwood of some kind that I'm looking at. Where it's growing in this wetland area, and these blue fruits here tell me I am looking at a silky dogwood. The fruits are these absolutely beautiful color that I'm hoping is coming through decently on the screen for you all. They're kind of a azure, cerulean, almost turquoisey color, and that's when they're ripe. When they're unripe, they're just plain old boring green, don't mind me. But when they get darker and shiny like that, that's a good sign for, if you listen to last month's tour, for birds to come in, scoop up the seeds, and go with them. And silky dogwood is a great food source for birds like robins and other thrushes who are getting ready, maybe not to migrate, but certainly stocking up for the winter. Wood thrushes do migrate. Not all robins do. Certainly some of them hang around long enough to eat the next plant that I want to circle back to, because this one was highlighted on our bog highlight tour pretty briefly, and it looks a little like the silky dogwood. So if you look at the leaves, they are likewise opposite each other and paired. And the veins in the middle, I mean, you'll notice them, but there are fine serrations on the outside of the leaf called teeth, and these veins run to those teeth. They don't curve towards the tip the way a dogwood would. That, and on a few of these you can start to see these very slender, tan, brush-like buds. This is a Viburnum, a shrub genus called Viburnum. And specifically, it's one called wild raisin. So it's fruiting right now too. And fruit starts off kind of green, mostly pink. Actually turns an even brighter pink. I promise it's not the sun. That's actually a pretty pink color. And when it's finally ripe, it will darken to a deep bluish black, like it does here, kind of tucked into the shade. But if you're able to get a good look at these, you'll notice they're not plump, round, very appetizing looking berries. They're actually kind of withered, which gives this its common name, wild raisin. And that withered state means the birds are kind of passing up on this to eat the other fruits that are available, like that from the dogwood. But when needs must, later down the road, they will come and eat the raisins, so to speak. Fruit-eating birds in the winter, beggars cannot be choosers. Right now they can, because they have an abundance of options. All right, sorry about that, folks. So the third shrub that the birds are absolutely devouring right now is this one right here. You can see the berries fairly falling off the vine, so to speak. But these leaves, while they also look opposite here, look at that lone one on the end. That tells me these are not separate leaves. This is all part of a leaf itself, a leaf entire. These are called leaflets. So this is a single leaf. And on the bark, it has these really stubby bumps called lenticels, which make the bark very rough. So that and these fruits tell me this is an elderberry shrub. And as you can tell by how few berries there are, the birds love this. I have tried to beat the birds to some elderberry bushes that I know about, and I have failed. But fruit-eating birds have a lot to load up on now to get ready for the migration and or overwintering here. In fact, there's a catbird complaining somewhere off to the left, if you can hear it. And the last plant that I want to really spend a lot of time with is this big plant right here. As you may be able to guess from the height, it is related to the sunflower. But most importantly, look at who's stopping by. It's a beautiful swallowtail, some skippers. I've seen, here we go, ginormous bumblebee, right on cue. Thank you for being here, sir. I've also seen eastern tiger swallowtails, which are the yellow and black ones. And yesterday, as I was out here, I saw a monarch butterfly, which was really spectacular, and actually the reason why I wanted to talk about this plant. So, for identification purposes, you've got a couple of cues. Big flowers, yes. These kind of long, alligator hide-like leaves with teeth on the edge, yes. Tall stems that are really rigid and hard, that the leaves come off in a whirl, a circle around. That tells me this is Joe Pyeweed. And as you can tell, the pollinators adore it. You could actually spend a lot of time out here watching all the pollinators stop by to fill up. Oh, there's actually an eastern tiger swallowtail over there. Backlit, of course, so you may not see him. Let me see if I can get a better angle. And these flowers like the jewelweed, are critical for bumblebees who are getting ready to overwinter, to our migrating insects who are getting ready to go somewhere else, or even just for the pollinators who will, as adults, perish, but who are leaving behind them a legacy of eggs tucked into the leaf litter, or larvae that will hide themselves as cocoons in the leaves over the winter. Flowers really do bloom all summer long here, and these pollinators depend on it. I know we think of spring's beautiful wildflowers and some of the most brilliant blooms in the early part of the summer, but the ones that are blooming now are absolutely critical for making sure that these guys get where they're going or do what they need to do. And Joe Pyeweed will not last forever. When the first hard frost comes, these big stems that you're seeing are actually going to die off, and they'll remain here in place over the winter, at which point the seeds that will take the place of these flowers will be really good forage for seed-eating birds like goldfinches. Again, similar to the sunflowers they're related to. But down at the base of these clumps is a root system that will live on, and next year it will send up new shoots. So it is actually a perennial. It lasts from year to year, unlike the jewelweed, which is one and done, so to speak, and just depends on seed dispersal to come back next year and help out all of its migrating friends. Just absolutely beautiful creatures. And there is one more story that I have yet to tell you about this particular part of Lindenwood Lake, which is, as the hummingbirds go flying overhead, this used to be lakeside. Back when Lindenwood Lake was actually constructed a century ago, roughly, this would have been water. But if you look around and you notice, okay, so we have an old hemlock that's passed away and started to rot. We have some mature birches. We've got some good-looking tulip poplars. Maybe not the kind of wide, tall, and girthy adults we might be used to, but some established trees. Well, the lakes has slowly been filling in on this end because the sediment from the mountain ridges around the station has been washing down through the stream that I'm heading towards off to my left. And little by little, this stream has carried in that soil and filled in the edge of the lake, creating just a little bit more space for something to grow. And plants like the jewelweed that we saw and that we are seeing right here, I told you they're very common. With those ballistic seed dispersals, for example, if that was a little bit of sand and dirt at the edge of Lindenwood Lake that had just been brought down by the stream, their seeds go flying next year, good chance that it might germinate there. And then the stream continues to bring more soil down, build it up. In fact, you can see the height of the bank here. It's a good foot plus of dirt. But little by little, bringing it all down. Then it gets deep enough where the jewelweed was growing for shrubs to take root. And the silky dogwood's wide, shallow roots can hold on to more soil and build it up even deeper, so that other plants, for example, like this red maple that's directly ahead of me, can find enough soil to take root in and start growing. So the slope from back there by Lower Lake Road towards Lindenwood Lake is enough that this stream is going at a pretty good clip, which tells you how much sediment and dirt has been deposited over time, changing the way that the lake looks, but also the plants that are growing here, which is a really cool story that I'd like to explore further, especially if it were possible to find some historical photos and maps of the lake and really see, okay, now we have all these sedges and dogwoods And even at the very far edge where we started, pitcher plants taking advantage of the sediment that's been deposited. How long did it take? What does that mean? A couple of really interesting questions to think about there. But that is my time for today. I think we've short and sweet to give you guys a glimpse of a part of the boardwalk and the botanical garden that you might not have been on, and also so you have plenty of time to go enjoy your holidays. Speaking of holidays, my phone seems to very desperately want to go on one, so I will wrap up quickly here. If you enjoyed this tour, keep an eye out for the remainder of the year. The third Tuesday of the month, we're continuing our Nature 101 series. This month is going to be about butterflies like the swallowtails that we saw and monarchs. If you're interested in receiving updates on additional programming that we're going to be doing, consider signing up for our e-blast at highlandsbiological.org. And if you enjoy these tours, also please consider donating to the foundation. It is your donations that make programs and positions like mine possible, so we greatly appreciate it. If you have any last questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in. I know that I was glad to talk with you all today, virtually though it might be. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay safe, stay healthy. If you're in the area, the Botanical Garden remains open dawn to dusk year round. So come on out and take a look at this wonderful, wonderful place for yourself. All right, bye.